Hi, welcome to my show where I get to interview awesome people, very talented artists, musicians, and also healers. Today we have Vincent Anthony Petra. Did I say that right?
You got it? Yeah.
Okay. And he is someone that I actually met when I went to the Edgar Casey meeting. You were talking about a subject I had never heard of before, family constellation. I want you to explain what that is, please, because I think it's very fascinating and powerful.
Sure, sure. Well, thanks for having me. Uh, so, systemic family constellations is a process where we're working with a family system um, by engaging an individual in a family. So, we're working with the individual, and in a group setting, we're actually leveraging the energy of the participants are standing in. So each participant may be standing in for a family member, for an individual that's looking to work through a particular issue that stems back from generationally in their family system. So they may be carrying something energetically, emotionally, um, that they're not really sure where that came from. And so systemic family constellations allows us to work from the root cause of perhaps a trauma or uh, um, some types of emotional unrest can be unpacked through a process of making the unconscious problem very conscious in a visual field of folks working together to through movement, through speaking, healing conversations, to essentially reconcile issues that were taken on through the family system by usually children that are well intentioned but not really equipped to handle those types of issues.
Well, and I think that's where the connection happened when I was listening to you, because I have graduated from a shamanic school, Lynn V. Andrews Shamanic School, 4 years, and I understood the power of having grown up in Iraq, having been born there, and some of the things that had happened, how they had left an impact on me that really trailed through my adulthood in a degree a lot deeper than I had thought. I kind of had just swept it under the rug as just things happen, and everybody goes through different things in childhood. But I started putting the pieces of how where I grew up in an oppressive regime, even though I was a child when I left, but. Those years and decades and my ancestors coming from that really did leave an imprint on me. And that is why after I listened to you talk, I ended up doing scheduling a session with you, because you do also work one-on-one with people.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like you to tell a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. So, um, the work I do is varied because people come to see me for different purposes. So I'm able to work with the family constellations process individually or one-on-one, as you know, and at the same time I have different inroads to the same goal, if you will. And for me, after 20 years of working with people, um, really it's all about reconnecting with oneself. Because whether an individual, a child, takes on a trauma that we now know through epigenetics that can be inherited through from generations back in our family system, whether a trauma comes about that way or perhaps there's something that happens in the child's life, whether there's interrupted bonding or like attachment issues where the child is not being attended to, or maybe parents are really busy trying to put food on the table, these sorts of things. Um, at the end of the day, really what we're looking for is connection, to reconnect the person to their real selves. Because with trauma, what happens is the person essentially disconnects from themselves, and they essentially create a false self, trying to find love. They'll go to the ends of the earth to do that, whether it be addictions to kind of try to mediate pain, or workaholism, or alcoholism, or smoking cigarettes, or spending one's whole life watching television, or just giving you some examples. Or some people, they really it's like they always feel like they have to perform. I saw that over the holidays in some cases. It's like it's okay to be ourselves. We'll be loved anyway.
Yeah, that thing of people being, doing things over the top, outperforming one another, the competitiveness, and actually trying to identify themselves with that, measuring themselves of who they are with that, and sometimes the culture that we're in doesn't really help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and I think this is so valuable. Again, it's similar to what I have studied, but in your case, I studied from home with occasional visits with Lynn and my other mentors in the school, where we did do ceremonies and learned certain techniques and use certain tools that we were only able to do in person instead of on the phone or energy work. But in your case, I'd like to know more about what is your background in regards to what did you study about this, and also about your trips to Peru, which you've gone there, like 2 times so far?
Yeah, starting a tradition of annual travel to Peru for training and apprenticeship in shamanic healing and plant medicine healing. So basically, since about 2011, I had a powerful initiation experience that has really forever changed me. And since then, I've been working, very differently with people. So I come from a background of, a psychology degree, and, further advanced master's degree in clinical social work and these sorts of things. And lots of clinical training, academic training, and that sort of thing. And when I had my first really, really big shamanic initiation, if you will, gave me a different, whole new, broader perspective into the healing process. And so, even though I'm using skills and tools that I've been honing along the way, what I can say about shamanic healing is that it's really opened up my ways of seeing what's happening with a person. So it's like a special way of assessing, what's happening with somebody emotionally, energetically, these sorts of things, and has allowed me to really be able to, it's like I get a feeling, I get a sense, or I get a vision, or I get words. These guide me in terms of helping people heal emotionally, energetically, spiritually, if you will.
Everything that you've been talking about is about healing and helping others, and intuition and energy. And these are things that I learned about in shamanic school, but I also realized that there's a lot of misconceptions that people have about shamanism. They not really understand what it is, and what is the biggest misconception, or what is something that you could clarify, or maybe how do you define it in your practice?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me answer it this way. So, in Western culture, I think a lot of a lot of the work around healing is to sort of like build up the ego in a way, to make people stronger in that way, and to help people learn some tools and change their behaviors, and all of those are really useful. In shamanic healing, the possibility is that the person really have a direct experience of letting go of the false self. So, in the Western world, everything that we do is television, media. The large majority of culture in the West is centered around encouraging people in a way to look outside themselves for happiness or for peace. If you just go shopping and you buy that, that piece of clothing, then you get a temporary reuptake of dopamine, and you feel great. But the problem with that is it's short-lived. So it doesn't solve the the root of unhappiness, or anxiety, trauma, depression. These sorts of things are not going to be solved through materialism or through searching outside of ourselves. And the culture is really promoting us to look outside of ourselves. And I'm not saying it's fine to buy, it's great to have a useful car and some clothing that you enjoy and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, healing is really an inside job, and often in my own experience, it takes somebody very skilled to help with that healing process. To hold the space so that the person feels supported in really finding themselves. For real, really finding their real self that's behind all of the masks, behind all of the conditioning, traumas, and beliefs about themselves, things that they took on with good intention from their family system.
Mm-hmm.
So with...
I really like how you described it, because for me, when I started learning about shamanism, and I started looking into the roots of my ancestors, and I actually found that I'm Chaldean, which are Christian Iraqis, but they have a history that's even longer than that, thousands and thousands of years, even before Christianity. And I saw the power. They were healers, medicine people, magicians, and they really built great empires, and it was a very rich culture that I started looking into how they actually used energy, and started understanding the energy work that goes into that. But what I have noticed, and I don't know if it's because I recently studied that, but I have noticed that there's more people being drawn to shamanism, to spiritual work. And it's kind of like when I started doing yoga over 10 years ago, I would go to the studio and there was about 6 to 10 people. On Sunday it was more. And you never found a man in there. It was always women. And over the years, you go sometimes nowadays, if you don't get there on time, you're not going to find room in a yoga studio, which I love seeing that. You also see a lot of men, and it's become more natural for them, bodybuilders that participate in that. So they're obviously understanding the value in that. And it's like our bodies were meant, our spirit needs certain types of exercises, certain types of connections to God. And so we're being drawn to what seems like an ancient way, because it's like there's no other way to go, because also everything that you just described is really not working. People are sort of losing their minds trying to find themselves, and when they're not finding it, they're thinking that this world is messed up, when really it's because we can't find the answer on the outside. So what I liked when I did come for a session, because it was related to my work, and I had seen that my past was again was affected how I worked. That coming from an oppressive regime, I didn't have as much. I didn't feel as strong of freedom with my writing, or I felt limited as a woman maybe. And so we talked about that, and with each visit, just like when I worked with Lynn, I felt like I released a lot of past conditioning. That's what I felt it was about. Whereas I think Lynn defines, she says that psychology is it's invaluable, she says, but it doesn't incorporate the sacred. And I think something that with shamanism, there's a sacredness to that it's not so loud, it's not pushy. I don't feel I have to step out of who I am or act. I have a certain type of personality. I don't feel like I can go in front of the camera and be that excited type of person. That it's not me, and I've learned that that's okay. That actually that's what makes each person special. So even the way that you're talking about this, the aura of it is that that you are grounded and you're centered, and I can feel that where I'm sitting. And and that's why you are able to work so successfully with people when they come to you. I would assume. I mean, that's the kind of vibration that I receive from you, and I just think that all that pumping people up to become who they're not could really create damage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my job really is to help people reclaim their wholeness and their power, because we don't need any more power. We have all the power we need inside. It's our birthright, and at the same time, we've been hypnotized, if you will, to forget and to not see our power. And at the same time, though, I want to, some of the things I've said, I don't want, the listener, the viewer, to misinterpret what I'm saying. I could say it this way: we have to ultimately stop deceiving ourselves. And the reason for that is because then we're inoculated or immune from falling for things that are not really in our best interest. So the real responsibility is to each person. We live in a culture that is like, the earth is a dualistic place. So there's incredible beauty, and there's an incredible mess happening at the same time. And I think in many ways that's also happening inside of the person. So the person needs to sort out, that the beauty is who they really are. And, the other stuff, the shadow of the person needs to be honored and embraced and loved just as much as the light side of the person. And at the same time, each one of us has a choice. Even Jesus was tempted by the devil, so to speak, and offered power. And another way of saying that is, ego stepped in and said, "Hey, you can have more than you already have," and it's an illusion. And so each person has to get really clear about, who they are, that they're already enough, and that they can be successful. And what I mean by successful is be themselves, know that they're safe, and know that they're worthy, and know that it's absolutely incumbent upon them to find themselves being authentic. Just being ourselves is our power. Yeah.
Well, I really love how you said what success is being ourselves. Really, that you get all these you're bombarded by emails and Facebook messages that tell you how you're going to be successful by turning this into that and making this into. And for me, I feel like as somebody looking at this, the feelings that it's drawing out, especially if somebody doesn't feel like they're successful, might feel like they're a failure, and you can get easily entrapped by that. I think with shamanism, it's not something that it could transform your life, you know, immediately, depending on, like you said, you had an experience and that transformed your life and took it in a different direction. But there's also work after that. It's taking responsibility for your life. So it's not like you just have this one. If somebody comes to you or they do the family constellation and then it's not over. Afterwards, they have to reflect and look at themselves in the mirror, and be honest with themselves at where they're at. And I know in your place of work, it's in the name of the center.
I'm at the Center for Healing Arts and Massage.
Okay, and I know that you have a lot of different activities that people can come and check out. Can you talk about that a little bit? I have some pictures I'd like to share too.
Oh,
if you
sure.
can, yes.
Sure.
So we have this. Can you explain what that picture is?
Yeah, so what you're seeing here is a picture of one of the ceremonies that I led at the Center for Healing Arts. And what I'm doing here is sharing some information, engaging people that are preparing for a meditation experience. And so what you're seeing is some instruments, gongs, particularly, and other types of simple instruments that essentially help encourage people to look inside. So these sounds are ancient, and the sounds invite people to be in the moment and to find themselves and to heal memories, or to allow a higher vision for their lives. All of these things are very common and possible with the use of sound for healing.
So how often do you have something like this where people can come in and have the opportunity to experience it, and how can they find out more about it and your schedule? Where can they go for that?
Sure. So for group activities, group experiences, usually about once a month, and these are available on the Center for Healing Arts and Massage Facebook page under Events tab, and also as far as folks that are looking to work with me individually, I can be found on Psychology Today Therapy Finder under my full name, Vince Anthony Pitre. That's another way of, if folks have questions or I just want to take a look at some of the work that I do a little bit more detailed. So, yeah.
Well, for now, so if somebody might think about this, or they're not even sure if they want to come in, or they want to maybe try to work something out on their own, do you have, and this is the new year, people are always in that mood to be working on themselves or trying something. They have that motivation, and you said really wonderful things that they can, if they take these kind of advice, but there's still a lot of inner work to do. But if there is something that a tool that you can give people, maybe that they can work on their own until, maybe they just want to something that would benefit people, especially now with the new year. We're still in January, and that mode. Is there something that you can maybe share?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things. So, like some tips, kind of thing. Strategies.
Yes. Things that you find that have worked, and something that people can kind of start off with at home.
Yeah. So let me share a number of very straightforward things that people can do, things that I do that help get the process started, if you will.
Yes.
Um, one is to move the body. Dancing or singing is really, really helpful. I know some people may be a little bit timid, but if you have a place in your home where you can just really let loose and move the body, it doesn't have to. You're not on television. Nobody's watching you. You just move your body in a way that feels good. You can use your voice and you can scream. You can sing. You can experiment with sounds that come out of your throat. These are all very useful things to start loosening up things and begin the healing process, or just to raise energy. You can do things like tapping vigorously on the collarbone will help release emotions and free up energy. It's also really great for the lymphatic system, so help with clearing out toxins, that sort of thing. And I know it's super cold outside, but if you dress warm enough and you just go outside and get some fresh air, maybe walk in the park.
I totally agree with that. Well, I have two kids, and I help take care of my mom. She lives with me, and I know, like, for instance, yesterday I wasn't able to go for a walk, but I usually try to take daily walks. And because I missed yesterday, so today, between the work and my kids, and at some point, because I'm so used to it, I really needed the fresh air. I can tell that my muscles start tensing up. I start tensing up, and before I go crazy on the kids, I just dress warm, go out there and take my walk, and I come back really relaxed. And I see a lot of people, oh, it's so cold, oh, it's, and it's really the way you perceive something. And when you do something long enough, and I come from a very warm region, so if anybody, I come from Iraq, which was
Right.
when we came here, it's like at that time when I came, we didn't even have snow. But it's being out with nature. You hear the birds chirping. It's winter and it's freezing, but they're out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I totally agree with that one. Especially, I know it changes my mood completely when I get some fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good tip too is, giving yourself a media break. So if you're a person that watches a lot of TV, then maybe like an hour less per day, and maybe instead read a book, something that's engaging, something that's really feeding you. Same thing with social media. Maybe some people. I think the research is showing now that the average person is checking their cell phone 150 times per day.
Really? Wow.
So, maybe checking the cell phone less, and giving yourself like a media detox, and just so that you can, because just being really conscious of connecting with yourself. The way to do that is to remove, the things that we use to distract ourselves from the present moment. All healing, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen right now. So, and we have to be still, and we have to give ourselves time to really feel what's happening.
Well,
goes a long way.
And I think, the way I look at it, I've spent a lot. I invest into myself, whether in Lynn School, when I came to your office. And the reason is I understand this is not just a one-day type of thing. And people invest in themselves, with the clothes and all that. And like you, I'm not against that, but it's also just like you take care of your body, you have to take care of your spirit and your emotions. So Actually, I just advise people to just come to your office or at least attend the meditation. I know those are very strong. So I really thank you for being here today. I think that you've shared valuable information, but I know that you probably would have to come back again because there's so much to shamanism more than this. And next time you have to come in with some pictures from Peru.
Yeah,
I would
enjoy
love that.
Sure.
So thank you for being here today and for sharing your story and some very valuable information.
It's thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good
Yeah.
night.